people are talking about Nate Oats. People are talking about this basketball program. Matt McCall, Mark Sears is back. They got a lot of different parts around him. What do you think about Alabama becoming a basketball school now with the football program losing its identity?
Well, I think I don't know if we can go that they're a complete basketball school, but they're on their way. And what Nate Oats has done there is truly remarkable. This is their SEC championship to lose, in my opinion, with what he's done. And I give Danny Hurley the utmost respect in terms of an X and O and offensive coach. But the last 2 years, if you look, or even last year, if you look at what Nate Oates' team has done, especially on the offensive end of the floor, they ranked number 1 in points per game and second in offensive efficiency. And all of a sudden you get a National Player of the Year candidate back on your team. I think the biggest challenge for this Alabama team is just going to be managing expectations. You know, if it doesn't go well in a certain game, how do you handle that? But look, it was protection at the rim that was the biggest issue in last season. How are we going to protect the paint? They go out and get arguably one of the best shot blockers in the entire country in Cliff Oriami from Rutgers. So coming back, I think the biggest thing is how are they going to manage these expectations, because they're either 1 or 2 to start the year off in the country, so everybody's coming for them. But, you know, what Nate Oats has done is really remarkable at that school.
Crazy remarkable what he's done. Terrence, when you look at just the fact that this team, Nate Oats gets there, and to me it was like, okay, how does Alabama catch Auburn? Auburn made sure that basketball was going to matter in the state of Alabama. And look right now, every preseason ranking, you got Alabama number 1 and Auburn's right there around number 2 in the SEC. To me, they went with Avery Johnson to be that move to kind of counteract Bruce Pearl. It didn't work. Then they go to Buffalo to get Nate Oats. It worked. Are you impressed with the way this guy, like, do you think he's got a culture that is sustainable, that can handle the pressure that Matt McCall is talking about?
I think culture matters less and less now, but at the same time, there is some continuity with this team. I mean, you look at Mark Sears, who's going to be the best guard in college basketball from day one, not named RJ Davis. I think it's 1A and 1B there. He's that talented. He's that good, and they've got even more shooting around him. Chris Youngblood did get hurt. He's going to miss some time. He's going to be there by the time conference play starts. But you look at some of these other pieces they added. Aiden Holloway's a stud. He was at Auburn last year. That's high treason as far as I'm concerned, fellas. Yeah. You can't just do that. You don't just do that. But at the same time, you look at all these names on the screen, whether it's Cliff Amourier, who I think has a little bit more skill than he was allowed to show under Steve Peichel at Rutgers, elite rim protector. I think he has a little bit of wiggle for his size. He's got some skill there that you might be able to see some this year. But Houston Mallett from Pepperdine, a terrific scorer. All those guys, you look from top to bottom, all 6, 6'7" to 7 feet. Huge. Aiden Sherrill, excellent perimeter shooter. He's 6'10", 6'11". I think the analytical approach to what Nate Oats has been able to do has been remarkable, really. And you would have thought Avery Johnson, that's a perfect fit in Tuscaloosa. No, sir. Let's go up to New York, and a guy who's been in Detroit before that, a high school coach. Let's see how that goes. It's the most it's the weirdest thing you've ever seen, but it's worked to perfection. And I think the fact of the matter is he was able to work in a little bit of a shadow for a little bit of time, and underneath Nick Saban, he was able to figure it out, and now they're able to explode onto the front page of the Tuscaloosa Times or whatever the hell newspaper they have down there. Yeah. And it is fun basketball to watch. It's not just Mark Sears, it's Grant Nelson, it's all these super talented individuals. McCall's right. It's theirs to lose, and there's a lot of talent there that goes exactly how Nate Oats likes to coach and play.
No question about it. Randolph, they have, as these guys pointed out, they have no excuse. They've got the backcourt. They got the front court. They've got depth. They've got a coach now that has proven that he's a consistent winner, which was a bit of an odd fit. He came from New York. He doesn't sound anything like y'all, and he doesn't have the accent or the twang or anything like that. But when you win, they love you. Hell, Nick Saban's a West Virginia guy that's fit like a glove in Tuscaloosa. But it seems like what I think I love about Nate Oats is that we see all these other coaches that are looking at college basketball right now, like Tony Bennett, and saying, I don't like this. I don't like the way the game is going. And Nate Oats has said, I'm going to adapt with this, and I'm going to be the best at it, kind of like what Nick Saban used to do with the football program.
Well, I'm going to call you guys out on this one. This will never be a basketball school. It's freaking Alabama, and it's going to be football school no matter what. They're just getting the benefit of some of that football money's rolled over into basketball. They got a whole lot of national championships to catch up with before we can even entertain the conversation in football. But no, seriously, guys, I think the only thing that holds these guys back will be what's the step that they take on the defensive end of the floor. That's it. I mean, offensively, they check every box. I think the only thing that's going to stop this team from reaching San Antonio is just a cold shooting night from three. And that's where if they take a step defensively this year, I think they can overcome that because they're so deep. I think they're one of maybe a handful, and when I say handful, I mean 10 deep rosters in college basketball. I think Duke's won. Kansas is really talented and deep this year. I think there's a few teams that can go as deep and keep the same level of intensity on both ends of the floor as Alabama, and there's not many teams that can do that. This team is loaded. It has everything you want, experience. They're battle tested. They've been in the big games. They've been there before. I think the biggest thing that gets in their way is health and boredom. You watched a couple of their exhibition games. They haven't even had everybody there. They played Mike Deeks, and it was a 30-point game, and they were missing 3 players. And Wake's, I think is a really good team. So everything's there. If they stay humble and hungry throughout conference play and into March, I mean, this team's loaded. I think the only thing slows them down is boredom and health. I think other than that, you get in the tournament, it's one and done. They do shoot so many threes. A off night can hurt them. That's where the defensive end of the floor. If this team, if Clifford Moore can stay out of foul trouble, stay on the floor, protect the rim, and everyone buys in defensively as well as they have offensively, then, they're my pick to win a national championship. But those are my only concerns about Alabama. I think they're loaded and it should be fun to watch.
They're the best team in that state for damn sure. I think that we're going to move on to Auburn and talk them next or whatever. But we got to focus on where we're at. I'm sitting here looking at some of their lineups and their switchability defensively, and I love what you said, RC. That all makes sense. But you look up and down, they have 2 guys that I think you can't switch with, and that's Sears and maybe Aiden Holloway. The rest of those guys are lengthy, rangy, can switch, can move their feet. Even Grant Nelson, who took some time to adjust last year, but finally found his footing. I love that point. They're as good as their defense is because they'll struggle shooting the ball some nights, and that's all well and good. But percentage-wise, I feel like they're going to be able to level out that shooting. It's that defensive capability. And McCall, you were a part of some staffs at Florida with some big, long dudes that could really defend. It makes life miserable on opposing teams when you have that many guys that can get out, switch on the perimeter, and then that eliminates all these rotations.
Yeah, and the other piece of it too is, and I talked about this, managing expectations, how are they going to handle with the big target on their back? Well, I mean, you look at their schedule. I mean, McNeese State, which we know is not going to be an easy game with what Will Wade's doing down there. And all of a sudden they're going to go to West Lafayette and play Purdue. They've got Illinois on the schedule. They've got Houston. They've got Rutgers, Notre Dame. Come on, North Carolina and the ACC, SEC Challenge. So he's not shying away from playing anybody. So this team's going to get pushed. So it's that adversity, it's coming. And how do they handle that and respond to that with one of the best teams in the country, to me, is the biggest key for this team. But the fact that they're scheduling that way just goes to show you how confident Nate Oats is in this team.